Okay, welcome aboard, everyone. Charles Moscowitz here. Michael D. Shaw is joining me, slightly delayed due to computer issues, but here you are, Mike, cranking it out.
It's funny, Chuck, how within really a few years of the advent of the internet being publicly available, people started relying on it to an extent that it's unbelievable. I mean, if it's down for a minute, people get upset,
Oh yeah,
and rightly so.
no, you freak out. I mean, can you imagine? Like my phone, I remember my computer's not working. I'm there having a complete meltdown.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't.
it's just so, and in the famous words of, I have to tell you, the first computer I ever bought, I had a friend who was an old-time mainstream guy, right? And this was an IBM PC, if anybody remembers that.
Was this the old-fashioned big desktop?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I had one of those.
So what happened was they came out with their first model that had a hard drive in it. That was the IBM XT, which I got. And my friend Alan Stewart, and again, old mainframe guy, older than me, he opens it up and said, "It's a miracle this thing works at all," because he was used to the huge IBM 360 mainframe, takes up a whole building.
Oh yeah, I remember you to go online. There was the handshake, and you hear like the clicking noise. And I mean, back then I was the head of a pretty big and successful business, so I had money back then. I spent a lot of money on this big, monitor and the keyboard and a printer and a column and memory and all the bells and whistles. Now, basically the laptop can do all of it you can get one for like $300 or $400 at Costco.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing. But anyway, the best thing that I saw all week, and I'm sure you see it because you watch all this crap, was that joint press conference of those Senate Democrat leaders. And you know what I know why you're laughing.
With Schumer.
Yeah. And they were asked, okay, Schumer was the head of it. And he's asked, what about the pardon? Well, I got nothing to add. And then the next reporter comes up, what about the pardon? So he's asked 5 times. All right, here is my sincere question to you in the audience. Biden's a dead duck. Why not, Chucky Schumer, just say, hey, we were disappointed. But to not even speak, do you appreciate how gelded this guy is? The Senate Majority Leader doesn't have the huevos to just give an honest statement. Hey, we were let down. But to say...
that's why they lost. That's why the worst violator, of course, was Harris. I mean, they could not answer a direct question on the most simple things. I mean, we've all seen the congressional testimony over the past couple of years. Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and some of these other guys asking questions of people, and they just would spit out this kind of like shibboleth, this kind of pre-planned slogan, and they kept repeating it. Some of these judge appointees are the worst. Oh my God, they're just like little robots. And I think that really peeved a lot of people, and this is why they voted for Trump.
Well, this stems from, and it's one of my great cliches, the Model UN mentality.
Right.
What do I mean by that? Because this probably predates some people. Back in the day, and you tell me if even in your era this was true, you get all the kiss-ass 7th and 8th graders, and they would be the Model UN. And they would have this set of liberal beliefs that were drummed into their heads. And the problem is most of these people never changed. Because
it's a finishing club for the future left-wing activists. I know my daughter was briefly involved in it. She didn't like it, but she went to she went to the convention in Boston for it, and one of the main speakers was Noam Chomsky.
Oh, there you go.
And he's there rambling along, and all of a sudden he said something outrageous. He goes, "The United States got what it deserved on 9/11," or something typical. Yeah. And all of a sudden, my daughter's like, she's like, "What?" Her ears pricked up. Yeah. But yeah, she
was smart. I mean, she was actually smart, as opposed to just being a quote good student. So right. The point is, and I think you'll agree, that the ones that weren't smart, like your daughter, there was it. They were
just spoon-fed, and it's kind of how to act, how to walk, how to talk. Yeah. It's a finishing school for the left, and for the future, rulers of the world.
And they never change. It's pathetic now, really, to watch it, because I knew people like this that had some intelligence, but despite all that's happened, they don't change. And
no, they can't. They're locked in. I mean, as I've said, a classic example is Harris, who obviously is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, complete tool, but nevertheless, she just could not answer a question. I don't think she's capable of it. So programmed at probably such an early age, probably by her Marxist father, that it's like there's no one home. It's like a robot. It's a hologram. There's lights. It's made up of like pieces of particles of light that look a certain way, but that there's nothing really there. It's I know I use that analogy. Oh, I always use that. It's a hologram phenomenon.
It's a hologram.
Smashing the Hologram. That's the subtitle of my new book. It's not out yet. I'm writing it. But look, there's a lot to celebrate right now. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I think that there are some damn good things going on.
I can't believe you're in a good mood. What's wrong?
I know, I'm not used to it. I almost don't know what to say. It's like I'm used to this kind of, I don't know what to do with myself. I mean, it's one victory after the next. Even this most aggravating story that's just coming out, that Biden, after pardoning Hunter, which in the broad sense, I suppose I don't blame him. If it was my son, I'd do the same. However, there's now talk within that administration, whoever's running it, that they're going to pardon all these rotten people. I mean, Fauci and Schiff and Liz Cheney. I mean, it's aggravating. It is. I mean, I think it's the last miserable gasp of a dying, illegitimate regime that has just weeks to go. They weren't able to trigger World War III in Ukraine, even though they gave a green light to mines and far-range missiles to hit Moscow. That didn't work. They're on their last legs. So Biden has just done something that involves some kind of an executive order that they claim will have legs after he leaves, that allows something like.
But they always talk about that. I mean,
they're trying to do all of this crap. This is like, I mean, Massachusetts is a microcosm of this. They say they're leaving the candle on at night, the day before the legislative leaves for Christmas and the day before the governor leaves for a new administration. They're there at like 11 p.m. at night on Christmas Eve, signing laws and signing legislation and trying to ram through. So this is a very dangerous time, but the days are waning, and the big stuff, they're not going to pull it off. But he did sign this one thing that is aggravating, and that is that it allows something like upwards of 42,000 federal employees to not show up to work. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that as it is, apparently it's very revealing that they're allowed to they only have to come in and show up one day out of the month. I mean, these people what are they doing? It's like a no-show. I mean, the real work is done by consultants who are also ripping everyone off.
Well, right. I mean, the story on that, and this is not well known to the public.
Yeah.
Right? I lived in the DC area for almost 20 years. there were people that I knew, obviously not going to mention the name, but this guy worked for a contractor for Department of Agriculture.
Right.
He was getting paid 3 times the salary of the agency guy who was supposedly a supervisor. And that's not uncommon.
And he was a subcontractor. He was because look at, I mean, Harris pissed through about over $1 billion of, no one knows where the money disappeared. Now they're 20 million in debt. And you know, it's been, I think there's some whistleblower has said that consulting firms and consultants became multimillionaires overnight. They just put the money in their pocket. They did nothing. And, you know, I mean, I could just give a personal anecdote here as well. This even happened to me. I mean, in my campaign, people got checks for doing nothing that I didn't know about. I had this one guy, you know, all of a sudden they all come out of the woodwork, you know. And he got a check as a consultant, and I ran into him at a Starbucks 2 years later.
Oh.
And he sheepishly said to me, he says, "I want you to know that I did nothing, you know, for that money." I'm like, look, I kind of suspected that, but I mean, that's the way this business is. I mean, you know, everybody's like getting these checks. And it's a situation which in Washington is so bad now that you have people who haven't shown up for years. And I think that the exciting news is that Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk are fully aware of it, and they're going to clean out those rat's nests, every last one of them. And I don't think if Biden is signing some kind of an executive order to protect them, I don't think that's going to work. You know,
no, it is going to work. And of course, the problem is for them that they're making it worse than it is. All right. If you have to decide an executive order to protect 40,000 people that aren't working, there's not going to be a whole lot of sympathy against government cuts.
But do you think he's going to do this blanket pardon of like Liz Cheney and all these rotten, you know, swamp monsters?
I'll tell you whose name is at the top of the list is Fauci.
Oh, I know. Oh, you know, the Mengele Fauci. I mean, that's aggravating. I mean, obviously, if they accept
Chuck, the good news is about that, and you know what I'm going to say. Yeah, it's terrible that this guy's killed thousands of people, maybe more. But now they're admitting it.
You know, I mean, yes. I mean, obviously, if they're not getting pardoned for nothing. I think that the party line is, well, this is all Trump's fault because Trump is going to prosecute these people. I don't think anyone, even the liberal media, didn't buy that when they claimed that about Hunter. Everybody knows that he was just a real scumbag. I mean, on the top highest order, nobody bought this at Trump's. First of all, he's not even on the list of people that Trump is going to prosecute. I mean, and also, unlike them who make up crimes, like they'll take an alleged campaign misdemeanor, turn it into a felony, split it into 34 pieces, and get 34 convictions from a corrupt jury and a judge who's made $85 million in contributions to his daughter's firm. The Trump people aren't going to do that. They're not going to make up crimes. There's plenty to work with there. They're going to work, you just work within the law. I just had on earlier today this lawyer, Peter Tickton. He's been around a while. He's actually a longtime personal friend of Trump in Florida. He's in Florida. He's bringing a case in Florida regarding voter fraud. And he's calling for the decertification of a congressional race because the independent, so-called mail-in ballots, which come in at an average of like several hundred to 1,000 a day in a period leading up to an election, he discovered that there was on one day 185,000 of them came in, which is statistically impossible, and that someone had shut off a little computer machine run by the state, which requires that they prove that they have a driver's license and that there's one other proof of personhood. that was shut off by someone or automatically the day those came in. And he's got a lawsuit. It's happening next week. And it's going to open up a whole deal. He knows Pam Bondi, who's going to be the attorney general. He knows Trump. They're aware of this. And I think that if they open this thing up, because he says this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of a national phenomena. Trump won anyway because he got such a huge vote, but they were doing this crap that we've been talking about for years with these fake votes. He says that they're almost like drone votes. They're phantom votes. They're not connected to a real person. I've heard about this before. I mean, this has been out there, but he now has the receipts for it. And he says that if the trial is on track and it really gets the kind of traction that it should get, it's going to open up a can of worms because Trump actually, in Congress, the Republicans actually carried 40 or 50 more seats than they actually seem to have. And that this was more done on a local level than nationally. Probably Trump did get bigger amounts of votes, but for the it was mainly a congressional thing. They couldn't take down Marco Rubio and Tim Scott because they like Trump. They had a big vote that these kind of votes couldn't overcome, but they were able to take out several close elections for Congress. And if this thing is exposed, oh, it would be beautiful. I mean, we'll there'll be a lot of new congressmen coming up.
Well, there's three elements that are very entrenched that are going to be attacked. One is voter fraud,
right,
which is everywhere, and you just have to use your old friend inductive reasoning, right? How did California go from being at worst a purple state to be blue as hell? It's voter fraud.
Yeah, but I think we have to differentiate. It's not so much voter fraud, like people engaging in fraud.
Voting fraud.
Well, yeah, that's a felony, and that's something that it's out there, but it's not. There's no big change in that. That's been going on since the days of Washington. What has changed is what I would call election fraud, ballot fraud. Good. These are not real people. These are fake ballots. This is, Attorney Ticton talked about ballots that are made up of algorithms that are entered into the computer system, that somehow they appear and then they disappear. It's like a ghost. They show up in the system a few days before an election and then they vanish. And he says that it is something it's a national thing. It's an international thing, actually. And that he's on the tip of an iceberg on a huge story. One that I think that the leftist media is going to try to, ignore, but it's percolating. As I said, he has Trump's air, he has Bondi's air. They know about it, and it's going to be very, very interesting to watch.
Yeah. Well, with as you call election fraud, there's also healthcare fraud. There's also defense industry fraud. And I think that's going to be the one that's hardest fought. All right. The reason they're after Hesgath is that he's the first actual war fighter, I think, in at least the last 100 years. Well, they never.
And yeah, this is a big
war was, but in the research I've done, they've always been bureaucrats.
Oh yeah, always desk. I mean, and also, I mean, the fraud in the Defense Department. I mean, they cannot pass an audit.
They failed 7 straight audits.
Yeah, and I mean, even my own Senator Ed Markey, before he went in the tank for the left completely, back when he was making his bones as a rep, he was the one. He held up a toilet seat and said, "This cost $2,000." He's the one that kind of exposed that back in the early, I think it was in the late 80s. He's been around forever. Yeah. But now he's completely corrupt. He's a complete stooge of the leftists, powers. But back when he started out, he was a fairly decent, solid Boston Irish guy, who knew how to go in and knock around some things. And he brought this up way back then. So this is nothing new. And yeah, Hegseth is somebody who could go after it. He's not part of it. And that's exactly why they're going
right.
after him.
He's not part of it. And it really is interesting that the only argument they can use, forget about all this crap they're trying to dig up on him, but the generic argument that, well, this is unprecedented. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Let's look at Robert McNamara. Boy, he hit a home run. He was another typical industry guy. How many lives have been?
I mean, all these people, Schlesinger. I mean, we could look at all of these guys, and that they're getting into like digging up someone's personal life, and I don't think it's going to work. I heard just yesterday, I don't know if this has been confirmed, but apparently all of the Republican senators are backing Hegseth, and that includes even the real rhinos like Murkowski and Collins. So this is a huge victory. This is a major step.
I think they're backing him because now they know which way the wind is blowing. There seems to be this whole bulldozer going through the entire corrupt government structure. The big money is in defense, and the big money is in healthcare. And that's the thing that they have to fix, those rotten agencies. Isn't it funny that the guy from Stanford, Bhattacharya, I believe his name is, he was on their enemies list, and now he's going to be head of the whole NIH.
Oh yeah, and Kennedy, that I don't think they can touch him. They've demonized him. They've tried to go into, his past, and they're digging up personal stuff. I don't think, this is the same crap they've always pulled. I mean, if they can't find something, they'll make it up, and they'll basically bribe people and hire people to come forward. I mean, this goes back to Anita Hill. That was the first example. She was a mediocre mid-level executive working under Thomas, and he might have told a few dirty jokes. Fine. He never touched her. He asked her out, not appropriate, but it's not like that has to come up in a Supreme Court hearing. I think that she was awarded. I think that she was groomed and she got money. I think that apparently afterwards she was charging $10,000 to appear as a as a speaker at a college, and she got a big fat book deal. Then she got a tenured position at Brandeis, and she was rewarded. Where she heads the diversity and inclusion department. So, right, she does. So she was. I think that that's how that works. I think that she was given some plums.
Well, you're from that area, so you tell me, how does the destruction of Brandeis University reputation comport with the Brandeis family, if it's still even involved?
I don't know if they ever were involved. I just think they named it after Brandeis because he was America's first Jewish Supreme Court justice. Right. It has nothing to do with Brandeis. It's just they wanted to come up with a good name to kind of give a brand. But even now, I mean, there's a woman making the rounds attacking Hegseth. For what? He was seen publicly drunk. There's no one's ever charged him with anything. But I think she's getting an award. She's going to get a book deal. She's going to get her fat face on television.
How about that? If everything she says is true, it doesn't matter anyway.
So what? She
lets the guy's room.
I mean, these are like the worst kind of like attacks. I mean, and she's appealing to the cottage industry of Trump haters, which are people who do spend money on books. Trump's own niece made millions, peddling her book. Right. And she was a disgruntled family member. It wasn't even against Trump. She was angry because the family screwed over her father. Fine. But she's used that anger to, hook into the Trump derangement industry. I mean, and as I said,
such a large percentage of book sales are based on this vicarious sort of weird sensation. Okay. If you go to any fat person's house, you'll see 2 bookshelves full of how to lose weight books. Right. And if you go to any liberal's house, you're going to see, I mean, before Trump, you'll see whatever the flavor of the month, left-wing cause, all the books.
Oh, yeah.
And
you walk into Brookline Booksmith here in Boston, near where I live, and it's all those books on the front of the house. I mean, that they're like in the windows, and along with the Black Lives Matter flag. Not to putting aside the fact that I think the head of Black Lives Matter endorsed Trump, but putting that aside, I mean, there's still, and they have what's called the apple pie and motherhood placards. We support science. We oppose hate. All these euphemisms that are saying that they hate Trump, basically. But
I've always wondered, because as a marketing guy, I'm always a student of human behavior. All right, maybe you hate Trump or you're liberal, whatever you are. How does it make it any better? How does it hurt Trump by you sending money for a book describing how bad he is? How does that affect anything?
They just wallow in this stuff. Yeah. I mean, look, I saw it at my Thanksgiving table.
Oh, I was going to ask.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are people, with due respect to her, my 91-year-old mother is one of them, that are going to spend the rest of their lives just stewing in hate and rage and anger and just absolute bitterness. I mean, I don't know how they sustain it. And it's so like they repeat, all of a sudden these people are experts on tariffs. They don't even know what a tariff is. They should have taken a little time to look it up in a dictionary. And they're like, all of a sudden they're like, anything that they can get. And it's, oh my, I mean, it's just, it's really like, and I think that cult is diminishing. I do. I think that
I think you're right. Reality has hit too many of these people right between the eyes. I mean, you can be the most flagrant Model UN type there is, but after a while, you're going to see, hey, you know what? My worldview that was pumped into my head when I was 12 maybe doesn't apply anymore. But then by the same token, you and I have met people who still talk that way.
They do.
And you just can't convince them otherwise.
It's like Michael Savage says, it's a mental disorder.
Yeah,
it's a mental disease. And I said to them, I said, look, I certainly respect opposing Trump's political positions, or using reason. And I get the fact you may not like him personally, you don't like his style, fine. But really, I mean, this kind of hatred, this irrational hatred. Look, I didn't like Obama. I disagreed with his socialistic agenda. I didn't like him as a person particularly. I found there was something about him that I didn't like his character. But when he did something that I thought was good, I praised it.
Right.
I wanted what's best for the country. I mean, I was glad that he wasn't worse. I wasn't like, stewing. And same thing with Clinton, who was even more of a loathsome individual. Yeah. But still, I mean, I never was, there's something really wrong with them. I mean, yeah. And I said, look, Trump has won. He won a substantial mandate. Get over it. You don't have to like him, and you can criticize, but it's like the campaign is over. You lost. Get over it. It's like, it's really, no. Although I will tell you, I haven't seen any. I mean, after John Kerry lost in Massachusetts, you still saw those signs up on the lawn a year later.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that with Harris. Those are gone. Nobody's. She's bad. I mean, she's like, just as I said, it's going to be like Dukakis. People don't want to ever think about her again.
Well, no one voted for Harris.
And by the way, you're right. I think her husband is leaving her, from what I understand.
It was pretty clear to me,
yeah,
having been around, the Hollywood situation, but that was just an arranged marriage.
Right.
Obviously, she had to have some, quote, husband.
Sure.
She was going to be on a political trail, but just
terrible.
You almost feel bad for them because good God, what a terrible candidate.
Oh, just the worst. I don't think there was a worse candidate in history. I mean, it was horrible. And
well,
now
people have made the argument that she was the worst.
Oh yeah,
hands
down the worst figure to ever reach that level in a presidential campaign. And I mean, I think most people are relieved, even people who hate Trump. They would not have been. They're happy that she's gone. I mean, it was awful. And you know, they may hate Trump, but Trump is, at least, even for the worst Trump haters, they understand that Trump is consistent. He is who he is, and we know what to expect from Trump, and he delivers it. I love that stuff, but even if you don't, there's a virtue to that. Same thing was in a way true of Reagan, even though I'm not a big fan, but he was consistent. You know, he carried himself in a certain way. He stood for certain things. You knew what to expect with Reagan, you know, and there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I would agree. People have asked me, what do you think she's going to do now? She's going to disappear, right? Who the hell wants to interview Kamala Harris?
Well, I mean, Bill O'Reilly says she's going to run for governor of California.
If she does, we'll
probably have to run against Caitlyn Jenner.
She's not popular.
I don't think
she doesn't realize everybody hates her. You know, it's kind of like you could almost compare her career, if you follow the movies, to Rachel Zegler. It's the same thing. Some pumped up situation, and in the case of Rachel Zegler, it's even worse because she torpedoes herself nonstop. At least Harris would generally keep her mouth shut.
Yeah.
Imagine being Disney, already spending over $300 million on the live action Snow White. Everybody hates this broad. Everybody. The trailers have come out, ratioed 10-1, 15-1 on YouTube.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. And they changed it. Here was the latest thing to come out. Well, in the original story, it's Snow White because her skin is white as snow. I'm not making up the following.
No, I know.
They changed the story to she's Snow White because she was out in a snowstorm as an infant and survived.
That's a good one. Can't have a white girl, you know.
And of course, the other problem, which is just killer. Magic mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? All right. If you look at Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler, who's better?
Enough said, yeah. Oh man, yeah. That's a huge. Debacle.
The DEI thing is just dying a well-deserved death.
Yes.
And it couldn't come any sooner, you know.
It's I mean, so yeah, these are all great and wonderful byproducts of this election. It really, you know, and I don't know, the Democratic Party could be in the wilderness for another 40 years. It'll be like the Israelites in the desert before they finally find a new promised land. I mean, they just, I think they're clinging. They're like, it's like the reverse of what Obama said, bitter clingers, holding on to their.
Exactly. I mean, the whole thing was based on, it's basically a communist model, right? You find the hobby horse du jour, all right? In 1917, it was the peasants and the poor workers. There's always some oppressed group.
Right. There has to be like that's part of like the critical theory. You know, you need to set people against each other, find a group that's, you know, being oppressed. I mean, it's the great conspiracy theory of exploitation. I mean,
I mean, let's face it, it worked for a while. You could be sympathetic to the peasants and the low-paid workers.
Right.
The trouble is they ran out of victim groups, you know? not that many people are sympathetic to trans women playing collegiate sports. So
no, I mean, this is like the lost. This is kind of the Waterloo,
yeah.
It seems, and conveniently, this case is now before the Supreme Court, and it doesn't look good for them. I mean, it's just you have you know, Ketanji Jackson, who comes across as about it's just as a dimwit. I mean, she says something about that she's comparing sex change operations for children to miscegenation. I don't know how
Yeah,
she makes
well,
that up.
but she was outdone, I think, by Sotomayor.
Oh, yeah, another one.
Sex change operation has about as much risk as taking an aspirin.
Yeah,
So
I mean, and I think I think that most people, including most liberals, are cringing over that. They don't want to talk about it. It's so, and it's just coming at a time when, they're already on the ropes, and this is one of the many reasons why Trump won is because people reject this whole agenda. Sex change operations for children is ghoulish. It's, it's sinister. It's sick. It's really something that, and meanwhile, you have these young women who are trying to come forward and testify in terms of what they've been through. They're the real heroes, and they're being ignored and they're being shut.
they're being ignored and silenced, and you really have to wonder about big pharma, about the whole healthcare.
It's a billion-dollar industry, right? People are making. I mean, Steve Bannon had on this guy the other day that it's just heartbreaking. I mean, he had twin sons, and one of them, I don't know what he did. Maybe he picked up a Barbie doll or something when he was 3 years old. The wife decided that he was actually a girl in a boy's body. They got divorced. She got custody. She's forcing him to have sex change operations. The father can't even see the child. It's heartbreaking. It's like, oh my God. And they got this radical judge, basically, coming down on him because he disagrees. I just don't think that's going to fly in this country. It's so evil and so despicable.
It is evil, but remember, they've controlled the institutions for 50, 60 years. So it's not going to come back all at once. But we let it deteriorate to this extent. And shame on us. All right. So
yeah, I mean, this is how far it's gotten. Sterilizing children, removing a young girl's fallopian tubes and a boy's testicles. That's what we've come to. That's the symbol of the opposition now. That's what they're fighting for now. I mean, that's how low it's gotten. Have they run out of everyone else? I mean, this would have been unthinkable even 3 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Always something. No, they want to call in the show.
Okay, tell them to come on.
Yeah. So it.
By the way, I mean,
I think this is as low as it's probably going to go, and I have zero sympathy for these idiots that have followed this train from championing the peasants and the workers down now to this transsexual stuff, and people, nodding, yes, that's the cause. It's all despicable.
It's ugly. And by the way, if someone is watching this live stream, you can call in 508-637-5596. We could take a call if you want to call in. 508-637-5596 is the number. I think we also can take chats on Kick and on Rumble. Let me just see if I can see that. I'm terrible with this. Yeah, I mean, I should get Discord, whatever that is. People tell me that that's something that could be used for, like, technically to get chats. I am really bad at that. By the way, if somebody knows someone who understands how to do some of these things, contact me and I'll hire you. To help me, because there are these various live streams that I just don't know how to hook them up, but I should have, and they're not even, a lot of them are free. I mean, I should be live on Substack. I should be live on Telegram.
All you have to do is find a conservative young person
Yeah,
in the Boston, Brookline area,
I
there's
should.
got
I
to be
mean,
2 or 3.
that's what I need. I need some kid maybe from BU at the
Yeah,
BU Quickie Job Service who it probably could do this in their sleep. They just line up. But I don't really have the the wherewithal for it. I mean, I've done some things, but anyway. So
well,
my
you're already on 33 networks.
yeah, I mean, I am up there, but I need help to get them on more of them and eventually get some consistency in terms of regular times and all of that. So anyway, but these are
What about your upcoming book? You dropped a hint on that.
well, yeah, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. I mean, I'm working on that slowly.
What's the
But that,
subject, if I may ask?
well, I am studying. So I'm going to get a degree in sociology through Arizona State University, and I'm using a lot of this assignments and materials and research for the book because it goes into what's happened to education. It's so far left that and some of the people that are taking these, as you say, like with Model UN, you have young people who are taking these courses who really don't know better and who are just steeped in this stuff. And it's real, you know, it's Marxism brought up to today and put into today's paradigm about the different causes. And so I'm writing about that, and I'm taking notes, and I'm writing papers, and I don't like to leave anything unpublished. So when I write a paper, I'm then incorporate. It's kind of easier that way. I have a paper I've written, and then I incorporate it into the book. So it's kind of
in the case of your old friend Sam Blumenthal,
yes.
how long ago did he notice this trend in education?
Well, Sam has written a shelf load of books on this. His magnum opus, I think, is NEA Trojan Horse in American Education,
Yeah.
where that was the first book that really launched him, and very influential, where he goes into the history of how this kind of behavioristic leftist modality took over public education and how it originally was not that. He shows how Harvard really started out as a Puritan thing. I mean, it was congregational and how it changed. Yeah. And same thing with Yale and all these colleges. They started out as Christian colleges and they changed. And he goes into when that happened, how that happened, and points to several major figures, including particularly John Dewey, as coining the phrase change agent and turning education into a tool of world change and reconnoitering the human being, as opposed to teaching people how to think. So, yeah, I mean, I think Sam, if he were here today, he'd be very pleased with what's going on. Trump has said that he's going to abolish the Department of Education, and he will, because he means it. And Reagan.
That was absolutely the low-hanging fruit. Okay, you could get rid of the majority of federal agencies, but if you wanted to pick the absolute easiest one that has no justification existing at all, that would be it.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's just the beginning. I mean, there's this what do they call it? Council of Democracy or something.
Yeah.
It was started actually by Jesse Helms, and it was started as in a sense, it was good in the beginning, but now it's run by Victoria Nuland and her husband, who basically wrote a column in the New York Times calling for Trump's assassination, and who is instigating color revolutions. They're behind the Ukraine revolution. Now they're starting trouble in Georgia, and they're out there. I mean, they get something like an annual $300 million check from the taxpayer. I think that Musk and Ramaswamy are going to cut them off at the knees right away. And these other things are just, we're going to, it's a beautiful thing to watch. I mean, I don't think that they're going to be corrupted. We'll see. But I think that these guys mean business. I think that, the wind is on their back. I mean, it's going to be, I think that all of Trump's people are going to be confirmed. You got Mike Davis out there, who I think would have been an interesting attorney general pick. He's the Project 21 project outfit. He was involved with helping shepherd in the Kavanaugh to U.S. Supreme Court. He's been around. He knows the score. And he's like, if any senator votes against, the Senate is there to advise and consent. And if someone has to have a pretty damn good reason to vote against a nominee of a president, they are there simply to look at whether or not someone's fit for the office, or if there are anything really major reasons why not, and there isn't. And so he says if they try to pull any crap on any of these people, those senators are going to feel a certain level of wrath. Not just in terms of being primary, but there's other things that he's in touch with that I think he can do. Maybe some of the old, going back to the old J. Edgar Hoover approach. I don't know. I don't know what he has in mind, but nothing violent at all. I'm just, that there's going to be a price to pay if they don't vote for the nominees. Trump won the election, and he has a right to appoint his cabinet, and that's that. Just like any other president, unless there's a damn good reason. So I think that Trump is going to get his people in, and it's going to be great. I'm
really looking forward to it. And what's nice is what an attitude change on your part. Yeah. My goodness.
After 4 years of traveling in the vineyards, and just being disheartened, it's exhilarating. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing to have seen. And it doesn't mean we dropped the ball, because, as I said earlier today, I had on this attorney, Peter Tickton, who is bringing a case in Florida of voter fraud or election fraud. We have to stay on that. They still have that apparatus. It's still in place, and they will use it again. And they have used it around the edges. You still have Mark Elias, who almost got, stole the election in Pennsylvania, right? The Casey. They meant business. I followed him on Twitter. They were trying to get him in. And the only reason
people are going after him now. On his Twitter feed was full of lawyers that claimed they knew the guy, that said he's got a serious, not making this up, BO problem. And they were arguing with him in the Supreme Court, couldn't stand within 10 feet of the guy.
Oh, he's obnoxious. I don't doubt that. He looks like a hound. But the only reason that stopped is because even Shapiro in Pennsylvania finally stood up and said it's over. Forget it. Yeah. So, I think that they're still out there. They still have this machine in place, and we still have to stay on it. We still have to interview people. We still have to examine it. There still has to be challenges to it. It has to be pulled out root and branch. It's like weeding a garden. These are deadly, weeds. They are, they're invasive species, that need to be. It's like in Florida, that snake that's destroying the Everglades. Yeah. They've hired bounty hunters to go in, and they're paying the big money for every snake they get, and they get more money for every egg that is in the snake. I saw a video about this. These guys went in, and this huge thing. They slid it open the stomach, and something like 30 eggs came out. We're going to be able to build a house on this. This is like, and they deserve to. That's what you do. You have to get rid of these things, or else they're going to strangle the entire Everglades. It's an invasive species that was put in there by who knows who. And that's what this is what this voter fraud thing is. It's an invasive species that it has a grip like a snake on our system, where every one man, one vote, with the sacred system of elections. And I just think that, you knock them back, but they're still there, and they can grow again. It's like the kudzu plant. You can burn it, but it's going to come back. So we have to stay on this, and I will stay on it.
Well, that's great. But it's good to see you in a positive mood.
Yes.
And, can't wait for what happens. I can just see Trump on January 20th walking off the podium, and immediately everything happens, you know?
It's going to be, I mean, I heard Steve Miller talk about this, and he said, look, the world is going to change on that day. And I believe that.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it's already affecting the world. Romania just elected a conservative guy who's stopping the trafficking of tens of thousands of Romanian children, apparently.
Yeah.
Germany, the liberal government's collapsing. France, the liberal government is collapsing. England, I think that Harwell, whatever his name is really unpopular, and he's probably going by the way of the glue factory. Ireland, I think, just elected a relatively conservative prime minister. It's happening, and it's all because of Trump. It's a boomerang effect all over the world. I don't really understand what's going on in South Korea, but maybe there's something with that. I don't know. But
God bless. You know?
Yeah. It's a worldwide phenomena where people are waking up and they're taking back.
That's great.
Yes. People are reasserting or asserting for the first time their sovereign rights as citizens under God.
And look, MSNBC and CNN are at their lowest ratings in decades.
They have become, I mean, Rachel Maddow was literally crying on the air. They had to cut away. She was like, so yeah, I mean, and they're gone. They're gone. And I don't know, rumor, I suppose.
You realize, does everybody realize that whole mess wouldn't even exist but for the way cable TV is set up? And cable TV is dying. I mean, I always said, and I maintain this, and I said this, I think, on your show and years before. What a business model. You charge 100 million customers for something that 80,000 people watch. What a deal.
Oh, yeah, right. And then they pipe it through the airport.
Yeah.
But I think that Elon Musk might buy MSNBC probably at a cheap price, and maybe he'll replace Rachel Maddow with Laura Loomer. Anyway, so Mike, what do you have coming up on the Substack?
Well, you know, when things quiet down a little bit before Christmas, I'll put up a couple articles. I haven't done anything for about 10 days. So just imagine
if the war against Christmas is over too. I think it is.
Yeah, well, that, you know, the war on Christmas, that quote doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah. And the war against Thanksgiving didn't go over too well this year either.
Yeah.
So I think that culturally there's some very interesting developments. America in many ways is back. So thank God.
Yeah, well, it's been away for a long time. So
yeah,
glad to see it back.
Be it back, but we have to keep educating and keep moving the ball. All right, Mike.